In my very humble opinion, I think one of the best parts about film photography is the instant camera. There's just something super rewarding about taking a picture and having it develop in a tangible way just within a couple of minutes. One of my absolute favorite instant cameras is the Fujifilm Instax Wide 300, and today I'm giving you an in-depth review about this camera. I'm also talking about all the best ways to use this camera, whether you decide to buy it for yourself or you already have it. I am Sammy. I am a business owner in the Midwest, and if you want to see more stuff on photography, beauty, business, maybe even a little bit of my life thrown into the mix, you can subscribe to this channel, hit that bell notification so that you are notified every Friday at 9 a.m. when my videos go up. Okay, so a couple of years ago, I actually got this camera as a birthday gift. And while I loved it, right off the bat, I also had some issues shooting it. I bombed a lot of photos. I just didn't know how to shoot it properly, and so that ended up leading me to waste a bunch of packets of film because I wasn't shooting it in the right way. I found out that most of my images came out underexposed or overexposed, or my main problem was that they were all out of focus. And this is why I am reviewing this camera for you guys, because when you start to learn how to actually shoot this baby, it produces some of the most beautiful instant images, and I would hate for anybody to shy away from this amazing camera just because it's, a little temperamental to work with. So I hope that this review helps you be able to go out there, shoot with this camera, and, basically live your best life. Okay, so let's first talk about the purchasing process of this camera. So this camera is incredibly easy to find. I actually just bought mine on Amazon, but I've also seen it on Adorama and on B&H Photo as well. This camera does retail about $100 depending on where you buy it. And when you open the box, it comes with a strap to be able to, a neck strap. It also comes with a little adapter so that you can take selfies or up-close photos with the camera. And it also comes with 2 AA batteries. Okay, so let's talk about the camera details. One of the things that I actually really like about this camera is that it is very lightweight and it's easy to hold, which in my opinion makes this perfect for traveling. When you're traveling, you don't want a lot of bulky stuff in your backpack or your bag or whatever it is that you're taking with you. When Andrew and I were in Hawaii last year, this was my instant camera of choice. I thought about doing a Polaroid camera, but I will get to, the big reason why I had chosen this camera later on in the video. But one of the things that I really appreciated it was how light it was, because it made it easy to just put in my backpack and take with us on the go. I also find that with Fujifilm cameras, especially this one, compared to other Polaroid cameras, that the development time of your images is significantly faster. I would say that this particular camera, when I shoot a photo, it takes maybe about 10 minutes for full exposure. You'll start to see your image within a minute or two, but I would say for full exposure it takes, I'd say, roughly about 10 minutes. Whereas I find that with my Polaroid cameras, it can take almost up to 20 minutes for it to properly fully expose the image, which in turn is really nice to have a faster exposure time, because if you find that you're in a place where you take a picture, it doesn't come out the way that you want, you'll know right away so that you can retake that image if you feel that you need to. Okay, so now let's actually talk about the actual image that comes out. So this is the size of the Instax Wide that comes out of the camera. Now for comparison, this is the Mini. This is what the Instax Mini film looks like. So as you can tell, it is legit 50% more image than you are getting from the Instax Mini. I personally prefer the wider. I like the longness of the image, if that's a word. I prefer to have more space to work with when it comes to my instant film images. Okay, now let's talk about the accessories for this camera. This camera in nature is very simplistic. Like I had mentioned before, it does come with this clip-on adapter so that you can take up-close photos or selfies. It also comes with, your neck strap, but other than that, there isn't too much accessories that can be used with this particular camera. I noticed that with the Instax Mini and even Polaroids, there are tons of accessories, but there's not a lot for this particular camera. I do notice though that the only thing that they have that's kind of, different and variety is that they do have packs of film that are black and white as opposed to the color ones that they typically have. And on top of that, they also have some fun cases that you can host your pictures in. I got this particular one on Amazon. This is the one that I bought to have all of my images from Hawaii in. So yeah, as you can tell, it's just a typical album, and it just holds photos, and these are all the images that I took while I was in Hawaii with Andrew. Ooh, that one's missing. So yeah, as far as accessories go, there isn't too much other than, you know, maybe fun neck straps, you know, fun little binders or cases to hold your film images, and, you know, the black and white film. Question time, friends. Have you ever shot on an instant camera before? Do you have like a particular memory? As you've probably heard in this video, one of my favorite memories about my instant camera is when I took it to Hawaii. If you shoot instant cameras and maybe you have a fun memory of it, leave it in the comments below. I would love to hear your stories. Okay, now let's jump into the actual how of using this camera. So, one of my big issues when I first started shooting was that I wasn't nailing my focus correct. So this camera in particular is very sensitive on how close you are to a particular subject. So it has two settings on it. You can either shoot from 3 to 10 feet. Anything within 3 to 10 feet will be in focus. And then they have another one that is from 10 feet to infinity. And that is typically what I use if I'm shooting anything landscape wise. I will use the 10 to infinity. But as far as portraits go, 3 feet is still pretty far away. You don't get to get up close and personal as one would like sometimes when shooting film. And so that is really what this adapter is for. This adapter doesn't have a particular length as far as I know. I just know for me it's about arm's length away. So when I am shooting a subject with the adapter on, I will just put my arm out and know that that's the distance that I'm supposed to have. Because this camera is so finicky on its distance and it can make it really difficult on landing the focus correctly because of the distance, I actually ended up writing myself a little cheat sheet on the back of my camera, and I posted it here so that whenever I am shooting, I know what my distance needs to be and what my settings need to be. And this was probably the really big first step that I took in making sure that my images were coming out properly focused. Now, the adapter does have a little mirror on it, and you can use this to do selfies. I, however, don't recommend it for selfies unless you want to see yourself in the worst possible angle ever. The camera is light, but it's not really light enough to hold it out and get it a good angle. And let me tell you that I've taken a few, and I wish that I could burn those images because they do not look good. So, you know what, if you want to venture and take a selfie with this, you go right ahead, go on with your bad self, but I highly recommend that you use this for more like detailed shots, like if you want to get up close to flowers or a portrait that you're taking of somebody. That's what I recommend this for. I don't necessarily recommend it for selfies. Okay, so when using this camera, like most Polaroid cameras and most film in general, the film is incredibly light hungry. I have tested it in a bunch of different scenarios, and I can tell you that the more light that you have, the better. I don't even think you could possibly have enough light to suit this film's need. It loves light so much, and because of that, it makes it really great to shoot open landscapes that are really bright and shooting directly where the sun is to the side of you. I've done that a couple of times, and I can put a picture right here where I shot a friend. There was a sun flare, and it's beautiful. It captures sun flare really well, whereas sometimes it can kind of blow out I feel like some film, whether it's instant or just regular film, blows out sun flares, but this one does really, really well with them. So that's a bonus to them. However, there is a setting that you can darken your photos. I don't recommend using that because of how light hungry the film is. There's also another setting where you can go lighter. And even in some cases where there is a lot of light, I've gone lighter and it still underexposes my images and they don't come out very well. So because of how light hungry it is, I recommend that you are shooting in bright, very openly lit places. Okay, now let's talk about the pros and cons of this camera. One of my favorite pros for this camera is the image sharpness. Now, when it comes to instant film, oftentimes, especially if you're looking at old Polaroids, they have almost like a softness to them where the images aren't super, super crisp. And that's great because it brings a lot of nostalgic feeling to it. But with this particular camera, I noticed that the images that come out are super sharp. They're just enough where they still look instant, but enough where there's enough detail there where you can really appreciate what's being photographed. Sometimes I feel like with my Polaroid, it can muddy some of the colors, and it can make things a little bit too soft where I feel like it loses its detail in the images. Whereas I feel like with the Fujifilm Instax 300, it retains detail incredibly well on its film. Because of how much it loves light, I really recommend shooting it for sunsets or sunrises. It really captures like sunsets really well. I'll put a picture here of a sunset that I had captured, and it does fantastic, and it captures the colors really well. I highly recommend it for that in particular. Another way that I love shooting this film, and a huge pro of it, is that it does fantastic with landscapes. It's amazing. It was my go-to when we were in Hawaii. Some of the images that I was able to capture on this film was just, this camera does amazing for landscapes. Honestly, just in that, like if you're a travel blogger and you want to take photos that are easy, this would be it. Honestly, it does so good with landscape and like travel photos. It's perfect. And my last pro is that it is super easy to learn. Once you learn the technical parts of it, it's very easy to adapt and use, and it's also very inexpensive, especially when you're looking at the cost of the film side by side with like other Polaroid cameras. The film is quite inexpensive compared to other films. And two cons that I have is that because of how simple the camera is, there isn't a lot of variety when it comes to accessories or different kinds of films. I noticed that with like the Instax Mini, there are so many different types of film, like even when the borders are different colored, and even Polaroid has that too, whereas I find with this, the Instax Wide, it's very simplistic. You get color film and you get black and white, and that's it. I hope one day that maybe Fujifilm comes out with more variety for the wide, because it's a fantastic camera and I would love to see some more, zhuzh put into the film. And my last con is that the flash is not controllable. The flash will come off whenever it feels like it wants to come off. You can maybe try to put a sticker on it, but honestly, it is what it is. There isn't too much control when it comes to the flash, and it often will go off when you don't want it to go off. And because you can't control the flash, I don't really like that. There are some images where the flash goes off, and that I had enough sunlight. I know that I had enough sunlight, but still the flash would go off. And so because of that, it does get a con in my book. I don't like that I can't control the capability of the flash with this camera. Okay, so let's talk overall the best uses for this camera. Like I stated above and on my little ramble, it is fantastic for landscapes. It's beautiful. It captures all of the landscape detail beautifully. I highly recommend it. Two is that it is fantastic for travel because it does so good with landscape pictures, and because it's a lighter camera and easy to use, I highly recommend it for travel. It would make a perfect companion. And the third reason, and one of the things that I loved about this camera, was because I shoot film, all of the clients that I would take photos of, like at weddings or at portrait sessions, I wouldn't have anything to show them, and sometimes a phone images isn't enough. So being able to take photos with my Instax camera, print the image right there, and then give those to my clients, it was just like a little piece of that moment for them. And so I highly recommend that if you want to be able to start shooting film at your sessions, take this little camera, take a few pictures, and give them to your clients, because it's going to make a world of difference and they're going to absolutely love it. I've never had a single client who hated it. Everybody loves being able to have like a little tangible part of their session with them. And it's the perfect way to tide them over until you can get your film scans back from your lab. Okay, and to end that little review, I'm going to give you two little tips. My first tip is that if you are shooting any kind of instant camera, any kind of film like that, if you are going to write on the actual film, please use a Sharpie. Please use a Sharpie. Otherwise, you're going to get a smudgy mess, and you're going to hate yourself for it. Trust me. I can't tell you how many times I've written on a film image and just and it swiped and ruined the whole thing that I had written. My second tip for you is that when you take your picture and your image pops out, please do not shake your photo. It actually ruins the development process. I know, some of us want to have our inner outcast come out and shake it like a Polaroid picture. But trust me when I say that all you should do is be a little bit boring, put your photo down gently and let it develop on its own. I had one case where I had shaken it, just not on purpose, but it was in my hand and I was moving around, and I'd ruined the image because it had this huge yellow streak down the middle of it because I had ruined the development process. There are actual chemicals in the film, and if you jostle them around, it could potentially ruin your image. So like I said, be boring, put your image down, put it in a safe spot, and let it develop on its own. Okay friends, so we covered all the good stuff about this camera, but what about regular film? What about film that's not instant? If you ever find yourself in a place where you are wondering which film you should shoot, which film stock's the best, I got you covered. If you click the link in my description box and sign up to be a part of the email newsletter family, a PDF guide of all my favorite film stocks, the best way to shoot them, and where to buy them will be sent directly into your email. Okay friends, that is it for me. If you liked this video, give it a big freaking thumbs up and comment down below what your biggest takeaway was. I love to hear from you guys. Reading your comments makes me super, super happy. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I genuinely appreciate it. I wish I could express how much I appreciate it, because I really genuinely do. And I will see you in the next video.